Hi everyone, thank you very much, Red. Hopefully everybody can hear me okay. So as Red says, today we're going to be talking about what's happened to Facebook. Lots of changes have happened, obviously, in the last many years really, but more importantly, we're talking about the ones that have happened in the last couple of months really, and the importance of them. So just a bit of an agenda, what we're going to talk about today. So I'm going to do a quick introduction of who I am, why I have any kind of authority of talking to you about this today. Have a quick look back in time. So looking at the history of Facebook, and this really sets the agenda as to why Facebook are doing what they're doing, really. Look at why you would even bother using Facebook, as it changes so often. It's often another job that has added to the list. So why would you even bother with it? Obviously, we're going to talk about the announcement, what it is, why it is happening, and the effect that it's going to have on you and your business working practices and all that kind of thing. It's really important at this stage, I think, to say that the effect is going to be on your Facebook page and not your business as a whole necessarily. We'll go into that a little bit more later on, but it's not a case of panicking now. Everything's going to go horribly wrong and all that kind of thing. So don't panic, essentially. It's about overcoming the change, what we can do to sort of make the most of the change and see it as an opportunity, I think, rather than a threat to everything. A bit about what other organisations are doing, tips for some future strategy. So what you need to consider for going forward and changing your marketing strategy, but your communication strategy really. And then obviously, as Red says, we've got a bit of time for questions at the end. So that is me, Laura Boundy, as Red says. I'm a freelance marketing professional. I've been self-employed for about a year now, well, just over a year actually. But I've got about 11 years of experience in working in the public sector, so mainly in further education colleges, but also working in publishing, so academic publishing, as an in-house, working on global marketing, publishing with agencies, working with smaller businesses now a little bit more as I've been working on my own, working with sort of smaller one-man band organisations, anything really from a project management consultant that I'm working with, but then also up to sort of larger organisations, again working with colleges, focusing on education. Dare I admit it, a bit of a marketing geek, love data, never thought I would say those words, but really enjoy finding out a bit more about what's going on and how we can make changes, but with a big focus on digital marketing and social media. I am a previous Oxcom student, so I've recently finished my CIM diploma, which has been really, really interesting, and Red was obviously one of my tutors and was brilliant. It hasn't paid me to say that, but she was. And then I've just put there some contact details, so if you wanted to get in touch after this webinar to talk anything through, or just to chew the fat, just see what's going on, there's my contact details at the bottom. Okay, so Facebook history. So Facebook was founded in 2004. It was originally, interestingly, called thefacebook.com. And when I was searching and found this image up on the top right, completely don't remember Facebook looking like that, if I'm honest. It's definitely changed over time, and obviously everybody hates the changes every time. But this is what it originally started out as. It was limited to Harvard students initially. So the history of Facebook basically was that as students went to Harvard, they were given a printed document that was a book with all of the faces, so the students in the university, so they could use it for networking, finding new friends, all that kind of stuff. And so that was taken and made into Facebook as we know it today. Obviously, it's evolved quite substantially since then, but that's the premise behind it. So after Harvard, it was then taken out to Boston area higher education institutions, Ivy League schools, Stanford University, so obviously it was then sort of spread further. By late 2007, Facebook had 100,000 business pages, and these started as groups, but not really as we know them today. But it just shows that even from the start, really, that businesses were jumping on this and saw it as a real opportunity. So it came into the UK, I think, about 2006, 2007. I certainly was on board, I think, about 2006, maybe, when I was at university in Manchester, and definitely remember some of my friends who weren't at university, who weren't able to be on Facebook because they didn't have academic email addresses. So it's really changed a lot since those days. As of last June, there were 2 billion active users, and that's a crazy amount of people to be on, or an audience for you basically to talk to. Important thing there is the active users. That means somebody that's basically logged into Facebook in the last month. So somebody has actively done something to keep them interested in Facebook. And there are 5 million businesses advertising on Facebook every single month. So clearly there is something that they're doing right there. I personally have fallen a bit out of love with Facebook, dare I say it, as a user, but also professionally. So Instagram and Twitter are my now go-to, really. But I think this change is a real opportunity for us to learn a lot more about our audience. I think Facebook for me, it's changed so much. It's very unpredictable with the algorithm changes. It can be a little bit like black magic. A lot of people are just scrolling through for the sake of it, and that's really why Facebook have made these changes, to make sure that people are actually having an engaged time on Facebook. But we'll talk more about that. So why would you use Facebook as a marketing tool? I mean, lots and lots of people obviously clearly are on it. Over 2 billion active users with 307 million in Europe. Crazy numbers. So it's a huge audience. Age generally from 25 to 34, most common age demographic. So if that's your target audience, ideal really for you to be on Facebook. 5 new profiles are created every second, which is just an astonishing number, really. And every 60 seconds, you've got people uploading statuses, posting comments, photos. It's a really engaged audience. So if you're thinking every 60 seconds, 510,000 comments are posted. It's such a huge opportunity for marketers. So while some people may poo-poo it and say Facebook's not for them, it's worth considering if it is right for your audience. And really importantly, interestingly, 42% of marketers say that Facebook is critical or important to their business. This is actually lower than I expected. I was quite surprised when I saw this stat. It could be that Facebook is not relevant to their business, which is fair enough. Could be that there's a lack of skills and resources within an organisation, which I find really often when I'm with clients, is that they just don't have the time, don't have the capacity to be able to give it its all, really. And also a lack of understanding, so not really seeing the power of Facebook and what it can do for the organisation. So Hootsuite and we also sort of put together this just to give a bit of an idea about social media use across the United Kingdom, specifically obviously with Facebook. So really interesting that there's 74% of the population in Wales are using Facebook. Obviously, it's quite a relatively low number in 2.3 million, but that's still, a lot of people that are involved. But this just shows that there's still more potential for audience growth across even just the UK. I mean, internationally across the world, the growth could be just ridiculous. So there's still scope really for more. And again, as I mentioned, the active users, this is so people who've logged in the last month don't necessarily have to have done anything, posted on anything, or posted anything themselves, commented or anything. As an active user is somebody who has logged in within the last month. So Facebook has these newsfeed values. And these are really important to understand what they're saying that they want Facebook to be about. And this feeds into, again, exactly why they've made this change. I was reading a article from Buffer recently, and all of the changes that they've been making, and as marketers we will see the engagement and reach and impressions of our pages just going further down and down and down and down, which can be quite disheartening when you're trying really hard. But it's really important to understand these values, and this is kind of the key to understanding why Facebook do what they do and what they want the newsfeed to look like. So the main objective for them is to connect people, connecting people with their friends and family. And these posts are prioritised, which, when I come and talk in a minute about the actual algorithm change, this is key to that. And after those posts, that Facebook are really keen on having posts in people's newsfeed that inform them and entertain them. So keep that in mind. It's a platform for all ideas, so they want to have every idea is welcome. This It's important to understand that they've been in the news quite a lot recently about Facebook Live and legal battles about that kind of stuff. So it's a platform for all ideas, but it's making sure that everyone feels safe and is safe, which is really, really important. They want to aim to deliver stories that people want to see most, based on your actions and your feedback and what you're doing. So they want, obviously, the authentic communications, so the good old fake news. They're prioritising genuine stories over anything that's misleading or spammy or sensationalised. So that obviously really, really links into everything that's happened with the US election and Donald Trump, and people not being quite sure anymore as to what they can believe when it pops up on their Facebook feed. And so the authenticity of it as a platform has really, really changed. People often feel that they don't have a lot of control over what they see on Facebook, which in some cases is true. It has changed a lot, like I said, since it was first launched. But you can actually control the experience to a certain extent with some of the features that they have, which I'm going to show you a bit later on. And obviously, they're constantly learning. They're constantly collecting feedback, as much as you may not want them to, constantly collecting feedback on everything that you're doing, your interactions, who you're talking to, what you're commenting on, what you're opening up to read, what you're clicking on, and all of these things they're taking and learning and going forward to make the newsfeed better for you is basically what they're attempting to do. Some may say it's not, but hey ho. So the announcement, well, a couple of announcements really, I suppose. Just as a very quick overview, in a nutshell, what this announcement is about. So it's a major algorithm change, and it's going to affect all businesses. So everything from a small organisation up to massive organisations like Coca-Cola. So one-man bands, up to like these huge international, like I say, global businesses. So everybody really needs to be aware of it and sort of jumping on it. And it's going to really, really transform the way that businesses use the platform. They're really, really keen to get back to their social network roots, which is why I talked about the history at the start, because it's really important for us to understand that, and as marketers to understand that and see the value that you're giving to your audience. So the social network is key. And they've actually done quite a lot of research, academic research, with Facebook and various organisations about the mental health aspects involved with users connecting. So they're saying it's good for users to connect, and Facebook wants to be part of this movement and this change to getting people together. So again, it's really focusing on posts from friends and family, and how that supports social network and your mental health. So 2 major changes have been announced this year. So news in your newsfeed to be from trusted sources. And the second is about more meaningful content. We're going to talk mostly about the meaningful content, but just touch on the trusted sources aspect. It's going to be about, they want to show you news that is from a publication that you, as a community, deems trustworthy. Things that people are going to find informative and stuff that's relevant to your local community. So in order to do this, they're going to be doing lots of surveys and getting lots of feedback, asking us as an audience, which I think is quite an interesting step, really, to say, what do you want to see, what do you trust, and what do you think is real? This could go either way. There are going to be some organisations and clickbait type media outlets that will potentially try and cheat the system, but I think it's a really good positive step in the right direction for Facebook to listen to the audience and understand what people actually want to see, and from a responsibility point of view as well, that as a huge media outlet, they have a real responsibility to their audience. So Mark Zuckerberg, the man himself, said they want to help you find relevant content that will help you have more meaningful social interactions. And this term of more meaningful content and more meaningful social interactions pops up everywhere. Every article that I've read about this, and obviously the original post from Facebook and Mark Zuckerberg, has just really, really highlighted this importance to them of this meaningful content and meaningful social interactions. So as I said, it's going to be much more about friends and families and groups. the audience has lost faith a little bit, I think, in Facebook, and I think this is what they feel. And detracted away from Facebook and started using other social media platforms, dare I say it. And people have become a lot less active on Facebook. I remember when I first started, every single night out I had at university had an album with pretty much the same photo posted over and over again. But everybody would then go on and tag themselves and see what was happening, and it was a huge deal. Everything that happened, of what I was having for my tea, the fact that I was walking to university, that I'd gone home for the weekend, everything was about, posting on Facebook. Everybody needed to know about it. Whereas now, I think I've probably posted maybe one or two things this year, if that. People have just lost interest in it, I think, a little bit. So not posting as much, so less active, and so don't have these meaningful interactions anymore. But on the flip side, by having more friends and families and group posts, there's going to be less space for public content from businesses, brands, and media, which, as a user, on the one hand, is brilliant news because I will see all the baby photos. I will see my friends on holiday, they're posting that kind of stuff, interesting things, fun stuff. And it'll be less about the businesses and things that I'm not as interested in, the clickbait type posts. From a business marketing with my clients point of thinking of my clients, that kind of point of view, this is really not brilliant news because there is a lot less space. So there's a huge amount of noise on Facebook, and people have there's going to be less space to be able to get into people's newsfeed and just being part of it. But the public content that you will see will really encourage meaningful interactions. So this is coming up time and time again. I'm going to say it probably a few hundred more times in this webinar, but these meaningful interactions are absolute key. So it's about creating communities of people that have common interests, and just keeping people together. They really, really want Facebook to not be a passive experience, and I'm as guilty of it as anybody. When I'm waiting in a cafe, or before I go to bed, or if I wake up in the morning, I'm just scrolling through for the sake of it. Sorry to my friend, but I'm probably not really that interested in most of the stuff that's on there. It's very much a passive experience, and Mark Zuckerberg is saying that they want people's time on Facebook to be well spent, because it would be really valuable and to add a really valuable aspect to their life, rather than it just being sort of in the background. And they don't want people to be lurkers, so these people that don't post themselves, never comment on things, don't like, but you definitely know they're there, because when you meet up in the pub, they will have said something about what you've posted. So they want less lurkers and more active, engaged participants on Facebook. You may have heard some chatter about the Explore tab, that Facebook had made these changes. So middle of last year, Facebook said that they were going to take all business and organisation posts out of the newsfeed and put it into this Explore tab. Obviously, that caused huge uproar from the sort of marketing community, as this would make such a huge difference. They did a bit of a test in a few countries and decided not to roll it out. But importantly, as I discovered earlier on, the Explore tab still exists. So I had a quick look on my phone just to make sure it still exists, and it is. It's actually quite interesting, because in there is lots of pages that I might be interested in based on the pages that I like, the comments that I'm making, the interactions that I'm having on Facebook. So it's not going to be about that, if you've heard that. It's more the post will stay in the people's news feeds, but they will be less of them. So this is a quote from the post that they said that Facebook put out, saying, at its best, Facebook has always been about personal connections. By focusing on bringing people closer together, whether it's friends or family, or around important moments in the world, and that's key to be sort of taking from this, we can make sure that time on Facebook is well spent. So this is quite a huge strategic change for Facebook. It's making it so Facebook is less obviously about advertising and business and profit margins, which we all secretly know it is, but it's making it so it's taking it really back to its roots. Some people say it's actually a bit of a cunning step, dare I say this, in that it is forcing businesses to spend more on advertising on Facebook as their engagement and reach drops. There's not been a hugely positive reaction from advertisers about this change, and some are sort of suggesting that they're trying to lure people in to spending more money, which depends how you look at it, I suppose. Some are saying that the days of organic reach are definitely over. Everybody's going to have to be investing in ads to get anywhere on Facebook. And that there'll be fewer opportunities to buy ads because more people will be wanting to buy them, and their prices will be higher. So it's all speculation. Until it actually happens, I think we need to sort of, like I said, not panic and just sort of ride the storm for a little bit. So Facebook, basically, in your newsfeed, in a nutshell, are going to prioritise posts that spark conversations and meaningful interactions. There it is again. It's going to predict the posts that you want to interact with and put these higher in your feed. So these predictions are going to be based on your previous interactions, your previous interactions from friends and family, so what they're doing on certain posts. So if my sister posted something and then my mum and my cousin and my dad and all these different people posted and liked it, they're going to show that to me because the likelihood I'm going to be interested in that. If somebody posted something and nobody commented on it, and then it probably isn't going to be shown to me because nobody seemingly cares about that. So they're looking for these meaningful interactions and sparking conversations. And what they're really, really interested in is back and forth discussions. So not just comments, but something where it's a conversation starts happening. So that could be something like, if you've got a friend saying, I need a plumber in this area, or I'm going to San Francisco, what's the best restaurant to go to? And then people start having a conversation about it. Another one is a news article, something that is relevant, that is breaking news, that is happening at the moment, that then people start talking about. So it's quite important to sort of bear those in mind. The consequences of this, like I've said, means that brilliant for users because they're seeing a lot more from people that they want to be talking with, but there's going to be less space for content for businesses and organisations such as yourself and me. You're going to potentially see a decline in your reach and engagement and referral traffic, which is obviously not great news. This is really, really, really important because you need to be thinking about how you're reporting your social media metrics to your senior team or to your wider team. So for a long time, it's not been about follows and likes on your Facebook page, and that's not ideal to be to be reporting on that kind of thing. But now it's more important than ever because you could have 20,000 likes and follows on your Facebook page, but no engagement at all. And that is, it doesn't matter that you've got all those likes, but you could have 100 people on your Facebook page, but a huge amount of engagement because you're really, really working hard with those people, and that content will be shown. So the follows and the likes are not metrics and key performance indicators to really think about. Engagement is really the key. And it will vary from page to page. So it's going to be obviously about the type of content that's produced and how people are interacting with it. So as an example, the pages that are already making posts that are prompting conversations, they're probably not going to see that much of a change. These are going to be people such as celebrities, news pages, so like the BBC News, excuse me, the BBC News, Buffer, people like that have already got loads and loads of engagement and comments, so they're not going to be as affected by this. As an example, there's some of the people that are just pushing out posts that are sales related. So we do this, we do that, we're going to be here, we're going to be there, that kind of thing. Probably going to see the biggest drop. So as an example, I've had clients and previously they've just put out sales-based posts. We've now moved to third-party content, sharing third-party content to make it a bit more interesting. As well as some salesy posts are kind of put in there, but that's not enough anymore. That's definitely not going to be enough. So there definitely needs to be a strategic change in how we're posting content and what we're deciding to use. So overcoming the change. Oh, that image has just gone over the writing there a little bit, but basically, so you're going to want to be creating content that generates conversations. A really, really good example of this is live video, and I don't see as many live videos on Facebook as maybe some of you guys do, but they don't pop up as often. But apparently they get 6 times as many interactions as normal video. So in terms of overcoming this feed algorithm change, live video is going to be quite key, I think, to be able to kind of beat the system slightly. Videos obviously are still prompting lots of discussions among followers. Things like celebrity posts, group pages, which I'm going to come back to. Local businesses connecting with communities, so having something relevant for their immediate audience geographically. And then news articles and different breaking news and having an opinion is strategically might not work for you, but having an opinion on a breaking news story is going to generate conversation. So basically, you need to sort of start thinking about taking action about your content strategies, and really digging into your data to find out who your fans are and what makes them tick. So then you can be sharing content that is really relevant to them as an audience. So a big no here. Engagement bait posts. So vote baiting, reaction baiting, share baiting is a big no-no, and I can't emphasize that enough. This was a change that's happened last year. It was kind of start of the tidy up of Facebook, I suppose. But anything like this is demoted in the newsfeed. It won't be shown, and will also affect future posts. So if you're putting posts out, say like this if you want to win a holiday, or tag a mate who does this kind of thing, all of those kind of posts are an absolute no. Don't even consider it. So that's a telling off there. This is a really interesting point that actually I must admit I wasn't aware of. So I feel like I need to share it with you just in case some of you guys aren't aware of it. But there is a feature where people can just make sure that they see your posts at the top of their newsfeed. And these guys are going to be really engaged with your organisation, with your business. And so they can actually do this. So by clicking on your page, this is a page that I follow, the Freelance Lifestyle, which is brilliant. And so by going to the following tab and clicking on the arrow down, there's an option there to see first. This is invaluable, really, if you've got people that you really want. You've got people in your audience that really want to see your content. This will show it to them, and there will be no problems about the fact that the algorithm changed. It's really important to tell people about this on your page. Some people are saying don't put it in a written post. Some people are saying do it in a video. It's much better for the changes, and that you're not trying to cheat the system again. So tell people about this, that if they want to keep up to date with your content and always find out what's happening from your organisation or your business, to select see first on the page. This is really important to definitely make sure that you're telling your audience about. So what are other organisations doing? Some companies haven't started making changes, and in fact probably lots and lots of companies haven't started making changes yet. Some are already down this line anyway, so don't need to worry about it. But organisations, for example, so rather than saying here's my new product, isn't it wonderful, go and buy it, and link to the website, rather than doing that as a sales focused post, they're doing live ask me anything sessions about the product. So for example, with Dyson, if they had a new vacuum cleaner, rather than saying this is our new Dyson, off you pop to the website and find out about it a bit more and buy it. There potentially would be really valuable for them to do an Ask Me Anything session where people can ask about the products, how long the battery life lasts, what other users are finding about it, and this will prompt lots and lots of engagement, lots of conversation, giving meaningful interactions, meaningful content that then is going to be shown higher up in people's news feeds. So it's just a case of switching your thought process, basically, from going from very much sales focused to how I can take this and make it so it's engaging and actually get people involved. These two examples here are actually quite interesting. So this pet shop, rather than saying, we've got these coats for your dogs, go and buy them on the website, have actually changed it, like flipped it around slightly and saying, how does your dog react to the cold? Tell us your top tips for protecting them. And this is asking your audience to give tips, so engaging them and asking them to start a conversation with you and with each other about the best ways to keep your dog warm in the winter months, which I am currently trying to do. Facebook groups. So pages are able to have Facebook groups. As an example, that Freelancer's Lifestyle that I mentioned a moment ago, it's brilliant. So it's got a Facebook page, but it actually has a group attached to it, and I'm part of that group, and it is the most engaged community of anybody on Facebook. And obviously this takes potentially quite a lot of monitoring and overseeing, but it's a really valuable way of making sure that you're building a community on Facebook. Obviously things like deals, offers and voucher codes, people are going to be sharing this kind of information out to their audiences. Product launches, interviews, that kind of thing. Facebook Local is really interesting. So is was launched. Well, it was an update of Facebook's event app. It's now called Facebook Local, and it's basically that you get recommendations from your friends and your families for local restaurants and bars and things like that. So it takes Facebook's database of all of the business pages and reviews and check-ins that people have done, and then on the app you can go to an area. So say I was going to San Francisco and I wanted to find a great restaurant, I could go onto the Facebook Local app and find recommendations from the audience. So it's again using this community aspect, and see what's around you and what you can do. It was obviously launched in the US initially, but I understand that it's now been launched in the UK. So it's basically taking the idea of Yelp, Foursquare, TripAdvisor, and the Facebook Events app and popping it all into one. It sounds like quite a good idea. And something that potentially businesses can kind of capitalize on, I think. There is Mr. Zuckerberg himself. So live Q&As is obviously a really great thing. I mentioned I haven't seen a lot of Facebook video, but I think we're probably going to see a lot more of this. Doing behind the scenes tours. So if you have, if your organisation is conference based, so setting up the conference, if you're in a workshop, showing people sort of behind the scenes workings. People love that kind of stuff. They're inherently nosy people. As a nation, as a group of people, we are inherently very nosy. And by seeing this kind of background stuff, it's really, really interesting. And breaking news, I've mentioned, demos and how to. So how to use your products. So if you have hair straighteners as your product, or some kind of hairdryer or something, you can show people how to use it for their own benefits. And like I said, events and conferences. So once you're actually at the event and conference, having live streams and live feeds of what's going on and Q&As with visitors and that kind of stuff is really valuable. So moving on to some tips for the future for you, really. So, oh, again, that picture's just gone over the words there, I'm afraid. But so warning your followers of the changes, as I mentioned about the see it first thing. This is, I think it's a really, really valuable thing. When I was talking to my mum about doing this webinar, she was like, but I follow these pages because I want to see these cottages that I can go on holiday to and that kind of thing. And so my mum is a prime candidate for this see it first, bless her. She wants to see the content rather than it just being kind of a background periphery item on Facebook to her. So tell your audience about see it first, and make sure that they're definitely seeing your content. And really interestingly, I think some people think that to overcome this Facebook change, that they need to post lots and lots and lots and lots to try and get into people's news feeds. And that isn't the case. It's really, really going to be on focusing on the quality of the content that you're putting out, like much, much, much more than it is about the quantity. Using insights. So if you don't already, Facebook Insights is a really, really valuable tool. It gives you lots of information about your audience, and making sure you're posting the right kind of content. So if you go to your Facebook page, you'll see a few tabs along the top. Insights is in there, and you can see information about specific posts. So you'll see whether people on your page are interacting much more with video, with images, with links, time of day that people are interacting, your audience. So, some people, an example, one of my clients as a college might believe that their audience is mostly going to be 15, 16-year-old students. Whereas actually, if you really delve into Facebook, you'll see that a large proportion of their audience are actually parents. So rather than me trying to talk to the 15 and 16-year-old, what I really should be doing is talking to the sort of 40, 50 plus audience. And it's more about caring for their child rather than trying to make it exciting for the student. So it's really important to understand who your audience are and definitely use the Insights tab. And then Facebook groups, again, like I've mentioned, it might not work for everybody because it isn't necessarily going to be the right kind of time, use of your time and resource and things like that, but it could be really interesting to generate conversation and communities. And if you've got the resource, it's definitely worth looking into. So it's about also motivating people to share for you. That's not necessarily just Facebook posts, because obviously we're not doing engagement bait, like I said, but about sharing your blog posts as well. So it's about creating really strong blog content and article content on your website that's really, really interesting for your audience. It'd be about your industry, about your customers, about products, anything that's kind of you feel is relevant for your audience. And you can actively promote your blog through to your existing customers through like newsletters or in-store or other social media, and asking them, sort of showing them that it's there, encouraging sharing. So then it's using their networks to widen your own networks. It also potentially, I'm going to talk a little bit about this a little bit, about advertising, but it might be worth considering put a little bit of budget against this just to promote it, push it out a little bit further, because you're adding really valuable content to your community. Testing and testing and testing and testing, and lots of people again don't have time for this, which I totally understand, because it can just be like, oh, I need to do a Facebook post, quickly put some stuff up. But testing is really, really valuable. So it could be, again, that you think that your audience is not interested in video, that they don't want to know about certain aspects of your business. Whereas actually your audience is sitting there on the other side of the screen saying, God, it's really brilliant to know about such and such. So test and find out. Don't just assume, definitely don't assume. Test it and find out, and do different things and learn from that and adapt that and put it back into your strategy going forward. So monitoring and measuring is really important, like I said. So making sure you understand what your key performance indicators are, what your metrics are, and what you should be recording for your own benefit, but also to feedback into the wider organisation, and about learning from these and adapting what you're doing, changing your strategies going forward. And nobody is doing this perfectly, and I think that's quite important to understand. Nobody absolutely totally understands what's happening with this, with Facebook generally, and it's always about learning, and I think it's really important to learn from what we're doing and taking that forward in what you're planning to do in the future. So as I said, it's probably more about posting less content rather than more. It's focusing on the quality. So it's, again, meaningful content that really reinforces your key brand messages. Advertising, it's definitely, if you have the budget, I think Facebook advertising can be really, really valuable because it can be so targeted to your audience. Like I said, some people think that potentially this algorithm change is Facebook's slightly sneaky way of making organisations and businesses spend more on Facebook. Well, if it is, it is, and we just have to roll with the punches. If you've got the budget, it's definitely worth investing, if you can, on advertising on Facebook. And keeping an eye on growing areas, so things like chatbots and using Messenger and things like that, to have these really meaningful one-on-one interactions with your audience. So it not just being kind of like a blanket putting out posts and then never talking to anybody ever again. You really want to be really focusing on keeping that one-on-one interaction going. And the personas, this is really, really important. And I could probably do a whole webinar about this, but creating personas, so actually using the insights and understanding who you're talking to. So down to the most literal point of actually creating a persona of, this is Sally, she is 19, she likes going out with her friends, she's got a dog, and she doesn't really enjoy her job, but she just does it for the day-to-day and enjoys going out for the weekend. That's one persona. You've equally then got Marjorie, who is 75 and on Facebook, and she's very young at heart and she enjoys going for long walks, all those kind of things. So when you're posting, making sure that you're talking to Marjorie and you're talking to Sally and you're talking to whoever you've created as your persona. So understanding who your audience is key to this. And the Facebook Insights really, really helps with that. So this, obviously, my sense of humour, this made me laugh. So really, really important, and hopefully none of you will be doing this, but if you are, I can certainly recommend and advise that this isn't the case. But don't put all of your eggs in one basket. So basically what I'm saying is, don't only use Facebook as your sole marketing tool, and you won't be. Even if you are only using it as the only social media, you won't be using Facebook as your only thing. Because if you've got a website, if you've got a shop front, if you've got an email address or an answering phone, you're doing different other kinds of marketing, but don't focus just on Facebook. There's so many different channels that you can use that are really, really valuable. So obviously, like email marketing, depending on your industry, can be really, really key. But a massive caveat to this is obviously the GDPR, which is again probably like 15 more webinars that could be valuable about this. GDPR is really something to consider if you're doing email marketing or thinking of doing email marketing. Other social media platforms, so for example, Instagram and Pinterest are really, really great for visual industries. So people like artists or retail or interior designers, florists, that kind of thing. If you do events or you've got like merchandising, all that kind of stuff, they are really, really valuable social platforms, as well as Facebook, to be using. I love Twitter. Unashamedly love Twitter, and I see it as a really great source of content. There's so many brilliant people on there that are sharing articles and sharing information that it's definitely worth thinking how your business can fit on Twitter. And then obviously LinkedIn, more professional side of it, networking using your professional audience, again, if it's relevant to your industry. Don't try and be on every single social platform is another piece of advice. Definitely don't do that. Do what's right for you. So thinking about other things like your search engine optimization, blog posts, news, generating content on your website so that you can share on social media, and also video is obviously a huge one. We've been banging on about video for years. It's less about, I think, really professionally finished videos actually now, and people are much more comfortable with little bit less polished edged videos. So even if you think that you can't do it, then definitely worth giving video a go. So just a bit of a summary of what we've been talking about. Hopefully I've not sort of rattled through that too quickly. But Facebook are really changing their focus to be about friends and family. So going back to their roots and really making it very much about the social interactions. Like I said, putting social first. It is a social network, and that they want to be about friends and family and your social side of your life, rather than about businesses and organisations. Like I said, as a user, brilliant. As a business and organisation, not so ideal. It's these meaningful interactions. I think that might be one of the last times I'm going to say it, but it is about meaningful interactions and meaningful content. You'll expect to see a drop in your engagement and your reach and your impressions. And like I said, really think about how you're reporting on your social media metrics. And it's worth priming and prepping those that you're reporting to that there's going to be a drop, and demonstrating how you're going to change your strategy and what you're doing to try and keep the engagement at the same level or increase it, and actually how the strategy might change. So it's not going to be a case of just posting out product-based sales posts. It's much more, you're going to be spending more time creating content and interesting things for your audience, and you're creating a community, like I said. So just really, really important to think about the metrics and how you're reporting. Understand your audience. I've mentioned this, obviously. Creating personas, using the Insights tab to understand who you're actually talking to is really, really important. It's about building a community, so the Facebook groups I've mentioned, using the local aspect and interacting, but it's a community around your brand, but also for you to be part of a community. So it's not just you and your organisation sitting in a silo and not interacting with anybody else. You're building a community and you're part of a community, and thinking of yourself as a consumer as much as a marketer, and think about what you would want. And advertising, like I said, it's not, I'm obviously not getting commission or anything, but it's definitely worth considering Facebook advertising if you have the budget and if it's relevant for your audience. So it's not always going to be relevant, but if you can, it is definitely worth looking at. And like I said, don't put all your eggs in one basket. Think about more than just Facebook. And going back to my point that I said at the beginning, these changes are going to affect your Facebook page. They're not necessarily going to affect your whole business. So it's not, the be all and end all of life, and that's that. We really need to kind of put this into perspective. It's really, really important that people are reacting to it and doing the right thing. But there is so much more that you can be doing in on other channels and in different media to make sure that your marketing is continuing and is really, really effective for you and your organisation. So that's me. Thank you very much. We're going to take some questions now. I think Red was going to jump in and speak about this as well.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Laura. That was absolutely fantastic. I know I certainly learned a few things. I will also join you in saying Twitter is one of my favorite social media
Yeah.
platforms as well.
Yeah.
I don't know why it just has it. I love the way that people interact on Twitter, and I do find it's actually for some of the businesses that I work with, Twitter is also a very useful outlet for them as well. Oh, Noelle is also agreeing with us that she finds that Twitter's great for networking. Um, Now, if you have any questions, just type them into the chat area. Laura is here for sort of the next few moments, just to see if there are any questions that you have. So type away. Laura, if you keep an eye on the chat area and just
Yeah.
answer any questions that you see.
Will do. I think it's probably quite interesting to say that Red, while she was my tutor, actually we have stayed in touch over Twitter. So that kind of level of networking is actually really important as well. So Rachel, I found lots of really really useful and interesting articles on how how the algorithm actually works. I think that it's there's lots of places like Buffer have really great articles. HubSpot have got some really brilliant articles about this. So it's worth just doing a bit of a Google search, I think, and seeing um, finding some sort of more in-depth information if that's what you're after. Um, I think yes, Buffer and Hootsuite, HubSpot are really sort of valuable for that. So you mentioned so Phil, the clickbaiting type things. This was actually a change that happened last year, and like I said, it was part of Facebook's start to try and tidy up the news feed basically. I think it's a rule that you should already be following. If I'm honest, they when the point that this algorithm is actually going to go out and start being live is still a little bit kind of not that clear really. And I was searching and searching and searching to see different places that might say when it's going live, but there's nothing there's nothing that I could find. So that's definitely something that you should be following already on the clickbait type posts. Um, so Alistair, specialising in hot drinks, food, fresh food, and water coolers. Example of one great Facebook post. Oh gosh, I would have to have a bit of a think about that probably and come back to you. If you wanted, I've got my details there on the screen. So if you wanted to send me a message or something on Twitter and things like that, we can have a chat about that a bit more. I think because I have to have a think about what we could do to make it sort of really effective for you and your audience. Multiple social. Samuel, so I, for different clients, use different things. So Buffer is a big favourite of mine. Hootsuite is a current huge favourite because now you can schedule posts to Instagram, which saves a huge amount of time. Make sure that posts actually go out. So definitely worth looking at Hootsuite and Buffer for those. Facebook Business Manager I use, like I said, for multiple clients. So that is really useful. But more generally across the board, Buffer and Hootsuite are the one for me. So James, I think what with the clickbait, engagement bait, things like that. So it's the like and sharing. So like this post if if you've got snow today, or put a heart on this post if you haven't got snow today, and that kind of thing. And they'll be able to see that as you're asking people to engage, sharing things. So share this with your audience, and to win something is where they're kind of thinking. The examples of giving us tips, I think, is a conversation starter. So it won't be kind of given as much, or won't be demoted as much in that sense. Noelle. So your business doesn't do well on Facebook, but performs far better on Twitter and LinkedIn. It's best to cut out Facebook altogether. I think you have to do what's right for your business, Noelle, really. If it isn't doing well, it's worth doing a bit of an audit and trying to understand why it's not doing well. Really thinking about, are your audience on Facebook? If Twitter and LinkedIn are working really well for you and you've got limited resources, then it's definitely worth focusing on those two rather than trying to kind of keep slogging out with Facebook if it's not right for you. If your senior management team are keen to retain it, then I suppose it's important that they understand that there's sort of little engagement, and that it might not actually be adding value, and it potentially could be a waste of time for your team or for you or whatever you're doing. So I would, do a bit of an audit of your page. I think is a good start. And yeah. I wouldn't say necessarily that I think Facebook would be more suitable for B2C companies rather than B2B. I had a conversation recently with some of my clients and my colleagues and things like that about B2B, and actually it's quite interesting to think that a lot of the people who work in businesses are obviously on Facebook too. So I, like here on the page, I have a Facebook page, and I didn't do until recently. And obviously I had a LinkedIn profile and Twitter for years and things like that. And I thought, well, I'll give it a shot because I'm a business technically, and I'm talking to businesses. And all of these people that are on Facebook are also businesses. So it's definitely worth sort of thinking about whether your audience is on there. So I don't think we can kind of sweepingly say it's B2B or B2C. But I think it's more valuable thinking about who your audience are and where they might be. Okay, Rachel. So the age changes is not something I've heard about. It's not something that's come up in any articles or anything. That that age is going to be a changing factor. I think I've got in my mind that there's been somebody tried YouTube. It might actually have been Facebook tried to launch like a kids version of their app. It would be worth looking into that a bit further. How much the take up has been, I don't know, but it's definitely worth sort of looking into it. But for a toy company, potentially you're talking to the parents as well, so Facebook is still valuable for you in that sense. Motives in this step for Facebook management. This is a difficult one. Some might say that it's to give sort of value back to the platform and to get people engaged because there's been a drop of engagement. It could be that they want people to be doing more and more advertising with them. It's really difficult to say what the motives for this change are. But I think as a user, like I said, it's quite an interesting and quite a valuable change. And I probably as a user welcome it. As a marketer and a business person, it does make it a bit trickier. So Doria, what they're really looking for is this meaningful interactions. I'm afraid I said it again. So it's about people that are engaging the audience. It's about people talking on your post. So if you've put an interesting article about something that then, or say you've shared a blog post and then people are saying, yeah, that's really interesting. I do that with that in my company or whatever. And then somebody replies to that saying, oh, that's really great. So what do you do in your company? This, and then having those kind of interactions as well as, this is a really interesting article. Great. Thank you for sharing. It's about engaging the audience into a kind of a community of people. And this will change over time as Facebook kind of look at how it's being used and what's working and what people are doing. So it's worth keeping an eye on it. Fernanda. Fernanda, I mean, for those kind of things where it's events and things like that, it could be potentially valuable and worth looking into Facebook advertising because it's something that you really want to push and promote. I think with that, because it's a salesy type post, you could potentially flip the tone of it and say like that we have this upcoming event and what would you like to see, and asking people for suggestions of what they would want to see at this event or what they would want to be talked about and that kind of thing. So brilliant to be using high quality images and a friendly tone if that's right for your brand sort of messaging, but actually also worth thinking about how you can ask questions of people and what they might want from you. I think it could be a bit of both, whether it's the care of the audience and it's their business. I think we can't shy away from the fact that Facebook is a business, and they actually want to make money. Clearly, profit at the end of the day is why they're doing what they're doing. But it's also about, they've done a lot of academic research, and I was saying earlier about the mental health aspect. So they are actually being quite responsible, I think, with their changes and what they're trying to do, and in turn, making it much more about a community and a valuable part of people's lives rather than something that you just kind of have and don't really use. So, yep. So blogs, as I mentioned earlier, there's lots and lots of different articles online of people talking about this. So it's worth doing a Google search to find specific things that you're interested in. But like I said, Buffer, HubSpot do brilliant articles about this kind of thing. Facebook themselves, obviously, seeing what they're saying. But by just doing a Google search, you'll come up with lots and lots of different articles that will show you the changes and what it means and how it will affect your business and how it will affect different industries as well. So it's definitely worth doing a Google search. Okay, Gabriella, what would be better, same content schedule across main channels? I think for the channels, you need to consider the different audiences that you're talking to. So, your LinkedIn audience is going to be different to your Facebook audience potentially. The tone might need to be a little bit different. The content of what you're posting might not be relevant for both audiences. So I think it's worth thinking about the content that you're scheduling and making sure that it's focused to your audience rather than the platform, and thinking about who's on there. So yes, thank you very much. That was interesting questions, and I hope everybody kind of got what they needed from it.
Thank you very much, Laura, and thank you so much for everyone for joining us today. As I said, if you wish to receive the recording of this, please just drop an email to inquiries@oxfordpeg.com and we can send that to you as well. All of those that have registered will pop you an email as well to receive the recording from that if you opted in. Thank you so much for joining us today. I hope you all don't have too much of a snowy afternoon and snowy weekend. And we hope to see you on the webinar soon. Thanks very much for listening, everyone. Take care.